Discover the heartbeat of Lexington at the Marriott City Center, your premier downtown destination. Let us handle all your meeting needs, whether you're planning a corporate gathering or a special celebration. Our elegant, versatile spaces provide the perfect setting for every moment. Don't forget about our great room bar, a perfect spot to stop in after work or before a game to enjoy handcrafted signature cocktails. You don't need to be a hotel guest, just relax and unwind. Whether you're gearing up for the game or winding down afterward, Lexington Marriott City Center, your ultimate destination to stay, connect, and celebrate. We've got everything you need to make every moment unforgettable. Welcome in, everyone, to a critical episode of the LetterWinner. Morgan, the atmosphere around Big Blue Nation is heavy. The questions are mounting. On the gridiron, unfortunately, the season has taken that turn that many feared it possibly would. Sitting at 2-4, the Wildcats are at a crossroads as they prepare to face a historic rival in the Tennessee Volunteers. The path forward is daunting, and the margin for error is essentially gone. But in the Commonwealth, what we know is that when one door appears to close, another one swings wide open, and it leads us onto the Hardwood. Mark Pope and his second chapter, it's officially underway with the blue and white game giving us our first glimpse of the most expensive roster, allegedly, in college basketball. But that glimpse was clouded by an instant of concern as point guard Jaland Lowe exited with a shoulder injury in the shadow of supposedly the cursed Annabelle doll, which made an appearance in Lexington last weekend. So I think the questions for the basketball program are just as pressing. I don't know if this injury is a mere coincidence or if it's an omen of a season destined to be haunted again by the injury bug. With the unprecedented financial investment comes unprecedented expectations. Can this high-priced basketball team live up to its billing and restore order in Lexington and bring in the 9th national title for the UK basketball program? From the pressing concerns on the football field to the high-stakes anticipation on the basketball court, we're breaking it all down tonight on the LetterWinner Pod. Morgan Newton got you back in the booth again tonight. How are you?
Jeremy, I'm well. That was a great intro. You hit the nail on the head. Just another time and another week. Lot to unpack. I'm excited that we get to do it tonight.
Where we want to get started tonight? On the Hardwood, we want to jump in, talk a little football.
Let's get to the Hardwood. $22 million. That's what the rumor is. Do you believe it?
I believe some of it. And what's crazy about that is that believing some of it means that, wow, it's still a big number. How much do I want to believe? The reports that I've seen from people that are putting numbers out on the internet is that this is a $5 million football roster.
How many million?
$5 million football roster. That's what I've seen. I haven't picked up the phone to call anybody, but that's the consistent number that I've seen. Kentucky is in the bottom quad in terms of expenses for football roster, and that number is on everybody's list.
When I heard $22 million, I just assumed it was false. It's been bounced around a lot here these last couple of weeks. I would like to see a breakdown of the $22 million, and we'll never see that, but I'd like to see it, which I don't know, it's crazy because it is a public institution. But I just try to figure out where $22 million go and to whom it goes. How can they possibly live up to the $22 million? At the end of the day, Jeremy, you started with 6 games in March in a row to cut down the nets. Who's getting paid the most? Owe? Is that what we assume?
Oh, without a doubt.
Okay, so
averaging 17 points a game as one of the premier shooting guards in college.
What you put in it is what you get out of it. Maybe. It's just unbelievable to me. And I think then the question becomes, what's considered a good season for the basketball team? Like, what are the expectations?
I think the expectations are clear. If the media narrative that's going unchecked by Coach Pope and the UK brass is that Kentucky has spent the most money amongst all the Division I college basketball teams, and those numbers aren't being corrected, I don't know how that helps. It's number 9 or nothing.
Jared, the way the tournament's set up, it's kind of a crapshoot who wins. We're not talking about 3, 5, 7-game series. We're talking about one game, win 6 games in a row. Let's just say it's a $22 million roster. There's like no first round picks on the roster, like NBA prospects. So it's $22 million. You know, a lot of guys that it sounds like are good players, but we don't know anything about if they're elite players. It just seems frivolous. Hey, we have this much money available to us. What are really realistically the returns on $22 million?
That's the biggest question. How do you measure the ROI from the university side? Because these are university resources that are being used. These are not just UK athletics resources. Let's be clear about that. So how does that show up in the bottom line? Has there been an uptick in governor scholars enrolling at UK? Rhodes scholars. I wasn't any of those, so I know that I'm missing some things. National merit scholars, out-of-state enrollment. Are these types of things being used to measure the ROI? Because as we talked about on last week's episode, we know that healthy sports programs, championship caliber sports programs, that's part of the student experience at UK. So you have to make sure that you're checking those boxes and making sure that those Tuesday and Saturday activities on the football and basketball side, that they're first class.
Mm-hmm.
So they're never going to get pushed back on me for pursuing excellence for the basketball program. However, I find it interesting. Let's go back to the summer when we talked about Champions Blue being constructed. One of the things that we were told by Mitch Barnhart at that time is that they were not going to have a fixed number or a fixed percentage on how much they were going to put into football or women's basketball or baseball, that they wanted to keep that number in a position where they can be fluid with it. Yeah. If I had to take a guess, it sounds like when you look at the product that baseball is getting ready to put on the field in the spring, the product that women's basketball is getting ready to put on that court this fall and next season, and also the product that the UK basketball program is going to put on that court, looks to me like those numbers were fluid to support those programs this year, and that football was not as high of a priority this season, Morgan. That's the way I see it.
So you see it as not as high of a priority or a low priority?
If we're talking about the 23 sports that UK offers, I would probably say that football is not number one. You look at the impact of the investments into the programs, potentially fourth or fifth on that list behind the programs that I just mentioned. I'm not saying that those other programs had access to more resources. I'm just saying that those other programs were able to utilize the resources to put their programs in positions to go out and win SEC championships this season.
So we talked a little bit about, maybe in a prior episode, about somebody in athletic administration. Talk about Pittman and say that Pittman doesn't have the resources to win at the highest level in the SEC. I think it's clear and obvious. If you invested 4x when anybody else has invested, you are making a statement. It doesn't take $22 million to win college games. I mean, that's just a fact. What about the Kentucky football job, though, and the Kentucky football program? Is it even realistic to have championship aspirations at Kentucky?
For the past 8 years, I've worked at the bedside or in a nursing administrative role. I have patients sometimes that come in and they're having cardiac issues. And we know it based on vital signs, based on the descriptors. And we put them on telemetry monitoring. So we put them on 5-lead. And now I'm able to look up on the screen at work and I'm able to follow their heart rhythm, check it, monitoring, right? Heart rate, PR interval, these type of things that mean something to me, mean something to the cardiologist. The state of the football program right now, if the football program walked into the hospital as a person, I would be putting telemetry monitoring on the football program. I would be monitoring the heart rate, the rhythm, these type of things. I have serious concerns about the viability, and there's a lot of places you and I both could be right now, but we both care about this program. We love it, and we know that there's a lot of people that do as well, former players, fans, and they need to hear authentic conversation. And I suspect, like a lot of people, that the loss of Vince Merrill was a considerable loss to the program, and numerous other coaches that have come and gone. 2-14 over the last 16 home games, lost the last 10 home SEC games. Catastrophic. I don't think a blank check fixes the problems that this program is currently facing. It doesn't. Could have given them the whole 22 and we weren't going to run the table and win the SEC championship. Some of the problems that the program is facing right now are problems of attrition, as we talked about on last week's episode. And by attrition, I mean not having people that care about and are willing to do any and everything for the name going across the chest. Potentially not having the right position coaches in some of these roles, which is extremely tough. We talked about how hard it is to replace coaches at a program like Kentucky. You don't have resumes hitting the stack like you would at a school further down south. Being able to choose, identify, and develop the right position coaches. I think Mark, in some situations, he's done a really good job with that. And then others, he has struggled. Some of these things, Morgan, they can't be overcome by funds or by access to resources. They just can't.
Systematic. It's the point well taken, point well delivered. I think that's a tough place about alignment and being aligned to the Kentucky program, because I think everybody really wants to see the program be successful, but I think it's a little bit of a bargain program where, you know, you go down the aisle and you pick up the Apple O's instead of the Apple Jacks, and you try to make the most out of some of the items that aren't brand value. They aren't face value compared to who you're going against.
It's okay to buy the markdowns.
Look, I agree on the markdowns. As a matter of fact, I think that's going to be a big part of the future. I think you kind of have to become really good at finding the bargain deals. I think it's a little bit of a find that steak that the for sale buy is coming up a little bit faster, but it's still a good piece of meat. Pause. And I think that's, I think that's got to be part of the program going forward, is getting back to being really good at evaluation and taking some players that are just a little short or whatever. That's just got to be part of the evaluation going forward. We've talked a little bit about the buyout stuff with Stoops. All right, that's fine. Everybody's got an opinion on that. So how do you fix? What's the first thing you got to do to fix the program in this environment where there's going to be a ton of big premier jobs that are open and you're not going to get $22 million to build a roster? How do you go about moving this program from trough to ascension?
I think the question that you just asked, we may be able to dabble into that a little bit, but that's probably that blueprint. That's an episode all for itself. I'm glad that you asked that question, because I was thinking that today, but I want to be in a position to think this out thoroughly. And I think that we owe that to the fan base as unofficial Champions Blue board members. Unofficial being the key word there. I want to make sure that we deliver a blueprint and a recipe for success that's very well thought out and takes into account the alumnus. But I always enjoy a very thorough exit interview process. I bring that up to say that there's a lot of surveys going around. I'd love to get a survey to hit my email as an alumnus and as a fan about what my thoughts are on what the football program needs and what it could utilize. I'd love to fill that survey out. I'd love to know what the Stoops era players feel right now. After 13 years, I'd love to know how some of these young men are doing in their professional lives 12, 13 years post the hiring of Mark Stoops. I'd like to hear from them.
Well, some of them are still playing, which is a great thing. I'm with you. I don't think that survey's happening, by the way, just for a record. I don't see that one happen. We're not paying the bill. We're not the ones saying check, please, at the end.
Things that I want answers to is recruiting in the state of Ohio. What happened to getting guys out of Youngstown? What happened in some of these places?
Those are two of his areas. And by the way, I'm out in these high school football streets. Guess who you still see out in the streets? Vince Morrow.
Big dog.
The big dog's still barking in the streets. I'm just telling you. You made a point earlier about Vince being gone and all that and how it's probably a little underrated. Well, I can tell you that it is noticeable who's in the streets. But some of that could be like the theory on player acquisition. It's less about being in the high school streets and more about what you do in the transfer portal. Maybe I'm completely off base on this, but if your emphasis is in the transfer portal, then that has to align to resources to go procure this talent out of the transfer portal. Getting some of these high school players is a little less expensive, more development minded than going and trying to bargain, get some of these guys in the portal. So that's the part of it that doesn't really make sense to me, is that you're a transfer portal team, or at least that's the appearance, that you're trying to become a transfer portal team on a budget.
There definitely has to be some balance. You posed a question about what will it take? What does the infrastructure look like for Kentucky in this new era? Let me just go ahead and touch on that. You said that you can't out NIL teams. You're right. The philosophy can't be cut checks. In my opinion, the philosophy has to be empowerment, helping get these players acclimated through innovative community initiatives, but also innovative investment initiatives. Maybe helping them start community service projects that they are passionate about. The university, the athletic department, the fan base, the community as a whole, they have to develop sustainable models to where these players, as they come into town, that they're able to be engaged at a level that's not superficial. If you go and look at some of the college players over the last 20 years, when they're happy and when they're engaged into the community, the on-field performance is amplified as well.
Let me just try to put this in the terms that are rudimentary Flintstone terms for me. So you think the pathway is investing in the players through more community-like affairs, where they get aligned to things that matter to the local communities, and it's reciprocated through opportunities that they deem to be impactful in their college careers.
They can develop skills and get access to events and community service opportunities that maybe they never would have until the NIL model became possible. Acquire skills that they may not have acquired for another 15, 20 years. If you got a brain, you got a little bit of emotional intelligence, you realize pretty quickly in the NBA, the NFL, these organizations, that the older players, they have wives, they have kids at home, et cetera. And it's the expectation that the younger players with less responsibilities, that they're going to be more active in the community service activities.
With NFL and that model, they're working hard to align themselves with the community because it might set them up for longer-term success and acclimation with the organization in that city. What you're promoting, we're going to have to target a different type of player. And I feel like unless there is a massive influx of capital, and that might happen. You start thinking about the TV contracts. I mean, that used to be a big deal to our university. It used to matter a lot, the TV contracts. But I also know that, Mr. Barnhart likes to have somewhat of a balanced athletic department and athletic programs. He cares about the 20th program like he cares about the top program. You just know that there's a certain type of player. You and I both know that we played with some guys that they were Cuba Gooding Jr., show me the money. That's how they would have been.
These are the guys that it's even more important to make sure that this isn't just transactional, or that the transaction doesn't outweigh the opportunity for the transformational opportunities as well. Because we know that the transaction is an important piece of it, but with the transaction, there need to be handshake agreements in place that you're going to be accessible to the community. The university and or the athletic department, they have to be intentional about taking these men and women that are coming into the program as transfers and introducing them to the community service organizations, the right people on campus to help campus and the community become small for them as well. Because if this is just about the check, I'm just coming in here, you haven't introduced me to anybody. I haven't had an opportunity to meet the president, the provost, the other people in the athletic department, some of the local charity organizations in which the university pours resources and time into. If you don't take those steps to personalize these things for someone, then they're in and out of here. But the moment that you start to introduce them to business people in town, community service leaders, the mayor, your local city council person, they start to get involved in some of these things. One of my favorite books is The Speed of Trust, and it talks about how to make a quick impact, how to build relationships and build trust with people in such a short, small window. If you aren't intentional about these things, these athletes will come in here, take the check. This place won't mean anything to him, and he'll jump around, cherry pick from organization to organization. But the organization that demands a little bit more of him, but they're also intentional about making the town, making the city smaller and making the names more personal, that you'll start to have higher rates of retention. The schools that decide that they want to create opportunities for their athletes or for their students to make investments in some of the upcoming projects, these are the types of things that are transformational opportunities that ensure that some of these people, as they go on and they become successful, that they also continue to pour back into the community.
It's a fair argument. I think it's also idealistic. The challenge is as rapidly as the environment shifting, because our competitors, Jeremy, as you know, let's say Kentucky football's aspirations are playoff. I'm not sure that they are, but let's just say for the sake of this conversation, they are. The teams you're going to be competing with to accomplish that, the ones that are going to be in your way, are going to be in the football version of an arms race. Even Van, who now they're a real factor. I'm from Indiana. Indiana has real billionaires that are aligned to their program. It's set up better for the NIL space than it was pre-NIL. There's a few schools that are like that. Indiana is one that, as long as they've got a legitimate coach.
That business school is world renowned for a reason.
It is billions out of that business school. Kentucky's got to find its formula for success. What we have right now is not working. It doesn't seem like it's anywhere even close. And too much of the conversation I feel like I hear amongst the community is, well, we just got to change the coach. We just, we changed the coach. It's been a long time. It's been 12, 13 years. When we change the coach, we'll have renewed energy. I don't know. I like Mark, but maybe we do need to change the coach. You've got to figure out who you are, what your identity is as a program for the next 10 to 15 years. And we've had conversations about private equity. We've had conversations about apprenticeship structures and aligning to community organizations. We've got to figure out the Kentucky formula and whatever that is.
I alluded to it a few weeks back, Morgan. Some of it is the contracts. Do the sole source contracts that are on campus, do they benefit the entire campus, or do they benefit some parties? Does it make sense that we have this company down the road that may be a local business and they've been in business for 40 years? Can they provide a higher value than the multinational company that has the sole source contract on campus? That's the question that I have posed to some of the higher ups. Are there local businesses that are willing to support the University of Kentucky, the University of Louisville, Moorhead, Western Kentucky, and they just aren't getting the opportunity because they can't get access? It's time to restructure some of the long-standing agreements. It's time to look at them.
It's a great thought. I'm just trying to figure out who aligned to the program today is positioned to deliver that sort of value. Is JMI and their contract positioned to deliver a plan that works for the next 10 to 15 years that goes above and beyond marketing rights? The marketing rights thing isn't different than what we've had for the last X number of years. So I'm trying to figure out what is going to be different, not just an extended contract with JMI. And look, I'm sure that extended contract with JMI is going to pay a lot of bills. As a matter of fact, I feel very confident that it will. And that's important. Somebody got to pay bills. What is going to be different, and who's prepared to execute on that? Because you can't just have the ideas, but you don't have anybody that's positioned to execute. Because we've had this conversation. A successful program looked like when we played in 2010 was all about operations. It was all about having the right staff in place, X and O coaches, recruiting and tapping into certain demographics and recruiting hotbeds because it wasn't going to always come internally. The playing field was perceived as level based on this concept of amateurism. In Title IX, it was a level playing field, allegedly. Now we're in a scenario where it's a free market.
It is a free market. And because it's a free market, what you're saying is that from top to bottom, you have to have innovation. You got to have innovators. You got to have bold leadership, people who are willing to say, let's try it this way. What are the hurdles? Let's eliminate the hurdles and let's go with it. And that just makes a lot of people uncomfortable. When you start using words, and you go into some of these places, facilities that I've been over the years, you find out who the real change agents are. The people who aren't afraid to raise their hand and say something unorthodox, willing to try something that no one else has tried. I commend the UK Athletics Administration for getting out, forming the LLC model, those types of things. But there's got to be more. I don't want to sound like a Billy Mays commercial over here, but there's got to be more.
Is it more or is it different?
It's different. It's thinking outside of the box. That's the reason why I intentionally bring up contracts. Contracts can prevent you from thinking outside of the box, from trying and trialing different things, different processes.
Do you bring in Deloitte, Accenture, McKinsey, business consultants, and spend millions among millions of dollars on business consultants?
I honestly don't think it's that hard, Morgan.
Well, a lot of those business consultants make a lot of money telling people things aren't that hard. It's that catalyst that pushes them. It's that thing that prods them.
That's a safe choice. Well, we went with Deloitte to get this information.
That's what I'm saying. Because
one
again,
of the most respected names in the industry.
But that's what I'm saying. Again, is it going to require looking at it like you might look at it if you're a multi-billion-dollar business industry where you've got to establish processes and an operating plan that reshapes your business?
It's going to require firing and hiring people that have different skill sets. People that the workday doesn't end at 4:30 or noon because I took work to the golf course. It's going to require people that are truly change agents that are willing to work around the clock and be relentless until the battle's won. Every pun intended. So what does that look like? Does it look like just hiring consultants? No. I think that there's people that are in the startup ecosystem.
Yeah, it's a fascinating conversation. I do think you've got to have some people that have real exposure to the business world and the business space to come in and look at things a little bit differently. And whether that's a consultant or not, I would say it probably isn't. You've got to make a concerted effort to bring in some people that really have a history in running businesses. You're going to have to do something more and different.
What's the ROI on investing in the football program or the basketball program? Maybe there's opportunity for some innovation there. How innovative was the check with me offense?
Well, very much so. I don't even really like it because it doesn't force quarterbacks to play the game the way they're supposed to play it. There's a whole generation of quarterbacks that grew up in this check with me world. It changed the game. It allowed you to coach the position different and play faster. How innovative is the Wildcat?
The Wildcat was the standard before people were able to start throwing the ball forward. I mean, football was Wildcat. Forward pass hasn't always been legal, right?
No, you're right. I mean, that stuff is cyclical. When you turn on some of the old tape, student body, belly, counter tray, midline, option, sweep, jet sweep, power, GT power, GH power, trap. All that stuff been doing for a long time. It's just the Wildcat. You add the quarterback to it. Do it from the shotgun. It's really the same stuff. They just did it from under center.
Morgan, Mark Pope kicks off season 2 against top-ranked Purdue on Friday in Rupp. Coach Painter, head coach of Purdue, says that this is part of their algorithm, trying to play a tough matchup at home in the exhibition games, which don't count, but he feels that this is something that they want to continue. What do you think about the Wildcats matchup against top-ranked Purdue Boilermakers Friday night? What's at stake? Is it a must-win for Mark Pope and company, or is Purdue pretty much expected to win this game easily just because of their experience versus the Kentucky team?
I've thought about this a little bit, Jeremy. Why is this not a real game? Just make it a real game. Like, you don't lose anything if it's not a real game. And I've had this conversation actually with one of my customers earlier this week. He brought it up, and you know what? I agree. Just make it a real game. Why does it need to be an exhibition game? Just make it the real game. What if somebody gets hurt in the game and it's an exhibition? It's a dang exhibition game. The people are going to be looking around. That $22 million that we spent, 2 of it's going to be gone if somebody gets hurt for an exhibition game. Why? Because I can tell you, the players are going to treat it like it's a real game. The coaches, the fan base is going to treat it like it's a real game. The media is going to report on it like it's a real game. There's a really smart guy that I had dinner with a couple nights ago at the IT symposium. And he said, why not just make it a real game? And you know what? I agree. It should just be a dang real game as far as I'm concerned. I'm excited to watch it. Purdue, believe it or not, has put together their team a lot like Pope has in this regard. It's built on having more mature players. Now, most of the time, Painter raises them in the program, whereas we've got them through the transfer portal. So that is a key difference.
I think in the eyes of the media and of the fans, it is a real game. And if you don't think that the results of this game and the performance is going to be something that, obviously it's the first game of the year, but if you don't think that this is going to weigh into the minds of the voters, you're crazy. You're kidding yourself.
Of course it.
If Kentucky goes out here and beats Purdue by 30, if you don't think that Kentucky, after they win that first real game, that they're going to go from number 9 to inside that top 3, you're kidding yourself.
Kidding yourself. If you don't think Jay Billis, when he goes and talks about the Champions Classic coming up in X number of weeks, if you don't think he's going to refer to this exhibition game, we're kidding ourselves. I guarantee you, when we turn on whatever early season games, the announcers are going to say, well, such and such player made this play against Purdue, and albeit it was an exhibition game, he made this play or didn't make this play. I get what they're trying to do, Jeremy. Trying to make it like the old soccer friendly. It ain't soccer, though.
No, it's not. Cutter Boley continuing to get better on the field. Looks like a guy that's playing with some confidence, with some swagger. 31 for 39 against that Texas defense. Last weekend, 258 yards. Had a couple rushes mixed in there as well that looked really good. What's going on with Cutter right now? Why is he showing such quick progression week over week?
Yeah, Jeremy, I think there's a few different reasons why. I think it starts with him. I think he's becoming more comfortable. I think he's learning. And that offensive staff deserves some credit for putting him in position to be successful. I think that just kind of goes underrated when you see a quarterback play well, is how did they get in the position to be successful? Clearly, when you go 31 for 39, as a passer in this league. You're seeing it well. You're making the plays. That's really efficient, throwing it down the field at a high clip. So we haven't had a lot of quarterbacks at our school that can produce those sort of numbers, and certainly not as a redshirt freshman. So the future is very bright for Cutter. We've doubled down on him a few different times in past episodes.
When it wasn't safe to do so.
When it wasn't so safe. And he's proven to get better. That has been a bright spot.
Tell you something that's not a bright spot is looking at the availability report, seeing our guy DJ Waller listed as doubtful. He was a scratch this past week against Texas, retweaked something in the warm-ups. Really could have utilized him. We thought we were close to getting him back. Seth McGowan, who we know had to get over to Chandler Medical Center, get some imaging. He came back, not quite like in Paul Pierce fashion, but he came back, was able to take some snaps, show his toughness, but he's listed as questionable. Fred Ferrier listed as questionable. Willie Rodriguez, Josh Caddis, and Khalil Saunders listed as probable on that availability report. So there's some names there that you just don't want to see on the availability report. If those guys are taking limited snaps this week, the offensive guys in particular, how does that affect Cutter Boley's week of preparation?
It's a brutal game. You go through the process of playing the game and then getting yourself ready to play the next game. This is also a team that's had 2 bye weeks already. And to still have those injuries is alarming, but it's a part of the game. For Cutter, it's just going to come down to finding the people around him that can be consistent, make plays, allow him to work within the function of the offense, and still try to find ways to move the ball. The defense played really well against Texas for the most part. I thought Brad White and his plan and his team put together a great plan, one that put Manning in some scenarios where he was uncomfortable. He's clearly uncomfortable. Now, he also missed some wide open guys.
This Tennessee defense, not as stout as they had anticipated being this year. They're banged up at the corners. Their best inside linebacker. The offense has been the unit that has been carrying Tennessee surprisingly. What does Cutter need to do to maintain the continuity and be able to bring it over from last week to this week?
You got to understand what type of game you're going to be playing in. Tennessee, much like some of those old Miss teams, those Lane Kiffin teams, they don't value time of possession. They want to go down and score. They want to make you play on your heels. These are the games that it's easy to try to possess the ball and take them out of their game. And how can we really feature the run game and possess the ball and allow Cutter to make plays with his arm and matriculate the ball down the field?
Were you surprised to see Cutter with 39 passing attempts?
I was a little surprised. But when Seth went out for periods of time, if he's not in there, you can still run it and have some success, but it doesn't yield the same type of results that it does when he's in the game. So I figure there would be a little bit more quick passing to align with the run game. A young guy to throw it 39 times in a league game, I think that speaks to the comfort that they have in him.
Also against one of the better defenses in the entire league, not just, any league game, but but a highly rated defense.
And a defense that's going to have some pros on it. I mean, some guys that are going to play in the next level on that defense. So, good to see.
Do you see any similarities between this season and Calipari's last season? I've seen some people trying to make some of those analogies.
They at times were so good and created such great memories at Kentucky. Cal won a national title. He went to several Final Fours. I mean, Cal was wildly successful at different points in his tenure. Same thing with Mark. Mark took this program to heights that they hadn't seen before. I think that's the challenge. I think Kentucky fan base wants to be loyal to their people, and it makes it tough to really move off of those guys, even when they've probably stayed a little bit too long. I think that there are some similarities. I think the key difference that I've noticed is Cal had gotten to a point where he was almost unapologetic about who he was and what he brought to the table. And I think Mark has shown some awareness in some of his recent media appearances that it's below standard. But I think in so many words, Mark has told you, pay me my money. So I'm sorry it's gone out like this, but I need my money.
We talked about this in episode 101, is that we thought that he was intentional about bolstering some of the position groups with former players and or with extra staff. Offensive line being one of those, safeties being one of those, quarterback position, bringing Mike Hartline back. I thought that his off-season hires for coaches or graduate assistants, I thought they were excellent.
Mhm.
I also see it from the other side that I think that he had enough insight and awareness to know that maybe those rooms needed a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
I just think that he stopped a little short in some of those areas. He missed some opportunities to really transform those rooms and get different personnel in there. To touch back on what we talked about earlier, I would be curious to know how some of the players on a couple of the last teams, how they felt about the people that were slated to lead them in some of these position rooms. Do the linebackers over the last couple of years, do they feel like they got better? Do they feel like they were as good as their predecessors? Do the safeties, do they feel that way? The answer would be resounding no. There has been drop-off in performance at the safety positions, at the linebacker positions, at the offensive line position. I would be adamant that there would need to be some position coach changes. And if they pulled me in to ask me specifically which rooms, I would be prepared with some performance data.
You're seeing basketball coaches step away a month before the season to allow their kids to be the coach. And look, I love Kelvin Sampson, but I mean, that's ridiculous. We've seen Bill Belichick bring in his kids, his friends' kids, and all that to be on the staff. When Mark has some of his buddies on the staff, I don't think that's atypical for college culture. I think there's an argument to be made that having people around you that you trust may at times be more important than some other factors. That might be the thing that sends him over the edge, requesting that he change his staff. He may not be interested in doing that. But I agree with you. I think there's been some misses. I know there were some people that were happy to let Berrien walk out of the door. But when you let a guy like Dane Key get out of the door, it doesn't seem like he was really replaced. Does it to you?
I don't think they let Dane Key get out the door. I think they put deadbolts on it, keypads, and he still found a way to get out the door. Dane made it clear that he wanted out the room.
It's hard for me to imagine Dane didn't want to be here. I haven't talked to him. I don't know. But, like, you know, I think there have been some missteps about personnel.
Look, Dane left and went with his wide receiver coach to Nebraska. I'm sure that relationship had a lot to do with it. If my position coach were to depart and leave and go to another program going into my senior year, knowing how important that guy was to my growth and development as a player, I probably would have considered leaving and going with Rick anywhere, despite the relationships that I had.
Yeah.
For Dane, it's a little bit of a different deal, though. You're a legacy guy.
You don't think the money has something to do with him? You don't think Nebraska having some money didn't have something to do with him going?
You're right about that. The question that I have is, could we not have pulled together? Are you telling me, don't get me worked up in here tonight. Are you telling me that we couldn't have expanded our NIL budget enough to keep Dane Key on this roster? You think that this came down to money and we let a legacy kid walk and go to Nebraska?
I'm not saying it came down to money. I can't speak for Dane Key and his family. But you're talking about going with your position coach. And that might have been applicable where you were playing. Nebraska has proven to spend money. You can't let a guy like Dane Key out the door, period. Not a guy that you actually want. Like, that's a guy you want. Can't let him out the door. Kid's from Frederick Douglass, man. That kid's from north side of Lexington. How you going to let him out the door? Come on, man. That, to me, is part of what was alarming. Vince jumping off the ship, alarming. It just didn't feel like those voids were filled.
For Mark going into this season, it felt like Calipari in his last year, in the sense of, I truly believe that Mark worked extremely hard to pull this roster together, despite having a better roster, despite having better quarterback play. You fix one thing, get one thing humming, and then something else starts to break down on you. We talked about how we thought that special teams needed to maybe break one. It looks like Ty Bryant, maybe they asked him to do a little bit of that, Morgan, and unfortunately found himself muffing a couple, putting a couple of them on the ground last week, wanting to do something to spark this offense.
I like Ty, but I don't think you can put him back out there if he's going to muff the punts.
And it's just unfortunate. The wind's just blowing in a different way. They're going to need some of these other guys to really catch a rhythm here to turn this season around. And it all starts with your border rival, the Tennessee Volunteers, coming to town this Saturday night. Josh Heupel marks 2-10 against the Tennessee Vols, 0-4, I believe, against Josh Heupel since he's arrived in Knoxville. Do you see a recipe for Mark Stoops to be able to pull off a victory over the Tennessee Volunteers this weekend?
Yeah, I do. I see a recipe. I think this is a big game for Cutter because, I remember playing against some of those teams that recruited me, and I wanted to show them that they were right to recruit me and right to want me. This game's going to have a little extra motivation in it for Cutter. He's going to be pumped up, and he's going to be excited to play against that staff that, I'm telling you, they were on him heavy. They were in Kentucky to come see him as much as they possibly could. They want him. This wasn't one of those non-committable offers. This one was committable. The key's going to be about possessing the ball and getting first down and staying on the field. Keeping them off, dictating the tempo. Because Josh Heupel's going to want to dictate the tempo on you.
This offense has given Brad White some fits over the years in different phases. I think Brad White's going to be asking his defense to be opportunistic, trying to force turnovers, trying to rip footballs out. Haven't ripped and recovered any out in recent memory. Got to generate some turnovers, got to generate some deflections. Our guy, Tyrion Nichols, we talked about him on last week's episode. Mark gave him a specific shout-out this past week, saying that he continues to grow and evolve. Thought that Tyrion played his best game as a Wildcat against Texas. Up front, those guys continue to push the pocket, do a good job there at the nose, at the three technique. A lot of things that are being overshadowed right now by Mark Stoops and the state of the program. These guys continue to fight, continue to work hard. There's no signs of them quitting. You just got to find ways to get them to dig in even more. That's all the time that we have for this episode. A huge thank you for listening and going on this journey with Morgan Newton and I. You can watch and follow us on X, Instagram, and TikTok using the handle @LetterWinnerPod.
I'm former QB Morgan Newton.
Go Cats.